Welcome to the Legal Advice in Paradise podcast, brought to you by www.legaladviceinparadise.com. Even in one of the most beautiful places in the world, life can be litigious. On this podcast, the best and brightest legal minds gather to help you navigate your way through every legal question you may face. This program will help you know your rights, know what steps to take, and help you find the best legal representation, all in simple, easy to understand terms. And now, here's your host, Justine Gronwald.
Aloha, agents of change. We're back here at Legal Advice in Paradise with a very honored guest here, Mr. Peter Carlisle.
Justine, it's a pleasure to see you bright and early this morning on a beautiful day with the sun shining and the surf rolling
and
in.
The surf. And my esteemed guest here was former mayor of Honolulu from 2010 to 2012.
That's right.
And over 14 years as Honolulu City Prosecutor.
I spent a lot of time in the prosecuting attorney's office, and that was 14 years as the head elected prosecutor. And I spent 10 years, once I got out of law school, as a line prosecutor. So I was a deputy prosecutor for 10 years and then in charge of the office for 14.
Fantastic. What we wanted to do is, Peter is he's seen everything under the sun as far as crime goes. In Hawaii, in beautiful Hawaii.
I have. I mean, obviously, I had to go into the Xerox building after there'd been the mass murders, which was not a very pleasant experience. And on top of that, I've seen people beat each other, being horrible to each other, family members abusing each other, children the victims of sexual assault, as well as complex fraud, multiple burglary cases, and you see a lot of the same characters coming in over and over again. There's a tremendous problem. I think we were talking about this earlier with the revolving door. The revolving door. And that's something that I would like very quickly to see an end to, as well as the plight that we've now got in Waikiki with the homeless who are going to the bathroom all over the place, hanging around everywhere, keeping their garbage in areas where it impedes people walking down the sidewalks. And this attitude of tolerance is, in my mind, something that has to come to an end if we're going to keep Hawaii beautiful and healthy. And Waikiki looked absolutely fabulous during the APEC conference. It was clean.
And I'd like you to talk about that because you were part of APEC, and explain to the audience what exactly is that in Hawaii, and then we'll get on to the whole criminal scene.
Well, the APEC was the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation is what it's called, but what happened here is President Obama brought APEC to the United States and selected Hawaii and Honolulu as the host city. And that meant that all of these leaders came from all around the Pacific Rim, which is obviously right now, I think everybody believes this is the Pacific century, and if they don't, they're sort of living in the past. But it allowed them to be in a spot that's as attractive and as appealing as this and get some very serious high-level negotiations and actions completed. And it was a total success, whereas other APECs have been widely, enormously expensive. This was done at a remarkably controlled expense and was entirely successful. And one of the people who was way up on the list of accomplishing that was Peter Ho. He did a great job with it, and he chaired it and did just magnificent work. And the other thing that we've got to be very proud of is the police department. I was working with Chief Kealoha at the time, and we did practice runs getting ready for how to get all of these dignitaries from point A to point B, and it's a lot of work. And by the time they had finished getting ready for it, they did it like clockwork.
Fantastic.
And with a minimum of disruption. Now, there was some disruption, but it was remarkably successful from start to finish. So it's something that is going to be remembered for generations to come, and something that we can all be proud of it as having been a part of it, because the whole community was part of it.
And right now, as you're an attorney here at O'Connor Playdon Guben.
I'm a partner. Okay, I'm
partner.
not a mere attorney. Excuse me. I'm a
Oh.
partner here in this thing.
You're a
I have no idea. I have no idea what that means. I mean, they call me a special partner. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or
You're
not.
international. Exactly. It's aligned with APEC.
Well, I do a lot of stuff to follow up with my relationships in Asia because of, and that was more some of the stuff that I did as mayor, not simply as APEC, because I did a lot. I visited a whole bunch of the countries that have ties to Hawaii, such as the Philippines, such as Japan, such as China, certainly South Korea, Taiwan. And as a result of visiting them, I established long-term relations with them and want to make sure that those continue for the benefit of Hawaii and for those countries as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go transition back to when you were city prosecutor.
Yes.
And we were just talking a little bit before we started here, and I said, you remember that TV show, If You Can't Do the Time, Don't Do the Crime?
Absolutely.
Was that Beretta?
I don't remember which one it was. Frankly, you're at least a generation younger than I am, so I may not have even watched shows at that point in my life. You remember I was there in the black and white TV era.
Oh, where you took the knob off the TV and you couldn't
on,
turn it channel?
On-off volume and station control. It was wonderful. And the first time I saw colored TV, I remember the day that I saw it, and I said, this is never going to catch on.
Rabbit ears with tinfoil.
Rabbit ears, tinfoils, and
somebody
it was
on
sort
the
of
roof.
a grainy looking. It was brownish looking. It didn't look very good. So I said, nah, black and white's going to rule. So that shows you how technologically savvy I am.
And we're sitting here in high tech, aren't we?
We are. This is remarkable. And the really good news is I haven't had to touch a single thing of all this apparatus. You've got this microphone over here. You've got this computer in front of me. You've got this eye staring at me. And frankly, for me, it's very intimidating and frightening. As you can see,
I'll just keep
I'm
you
very
calm.
nervous. You can keep me calm. That's going to take, I think, intravenous drugs.
Okay. All right. So in all seriousness, Legal Advice in Paradise, the motto is, it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when you're going to need legal help and guidance. And a lot of us don't see any of this coming. We're going to take it from the standpoint that if you do a crime, but what if you're the victim? And so, what can you do? And we're going to go down a list of things up to the point where how to pick an attorney.
Okay.
Okay.
How to pick attorney is a big deal.
Yes.
No doubt
I
about
agree.
it. Initially, when you get into a situation, no matter what crime it is, if you're the victim, basically you're going to call the police, you're going to report the crime, and then you're going to be confronting the entire process of what happens to get that crime prosecuted. And it's a multitude of different
it's daunting,
steps.
Isn't
It's
it?
daunting.
It's a
It
lot of
goes on and on.
emotions.
Well, that's the more difficult part of it, and that's one of the things that the legal profession and the prosecutorial and police departments years and years and years ago didn't do very well. And we've gone way over in the other direction to make sure that we are sensitive to the needs of the victim, understand the emotional impact that the crime has, understand the impact that it has on the entire family, because frankly one of the big problems is children who have been victims of crime. That's one issue, but it's also children who are in a household where there is domestic violence or sexual assault. All of those things become very complicated for them emotionally as they progress, and you need to make absolutely certain that you're moving in a direction that will give them a chance to thrive and do better with their futures.
So, say we're going down the path, like, okay, you said you're a victim, you need to report to the police. What's the next step?
Well, what will happen is you're going to have a number of people asking you questions. You're going to be interviewed by the police. You may have to go down to the police department. Depending on what's happening in terms of the crime, you may actually have follow-up that's done by that officer, or you may be meeting with a prosecutor at some point, somebody who has to do with the intake of a case. That can happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can. And everything is geared now to put this thing into the system. And the system, first you have, and there's a huge difference between a traffic ticket and a misdemeanor and a full-blown felony case. And all of those things require sort of separate treatments or protocols and procedures. And you have to be prepared to do things that are going to be inconvenient. Well, yes, oftentimes uncomfortable. And the really good thing is we're moving now more and more in a direction to stop making the victim repeat things over and over and over again.
Oh gosh, to relive the whole thing over and over again is just incredible. I mean, in my own case, I had to do it on the stand.
It becomes very, very difficult, and it becomes draining, and it becomes very time-consuming, and it gets in the way of your work. It gets in the way of your responsibilities to your family. So it's essential for us to try and make it easier. And one of the things that has helped a lot is something called information charging, which means victims frequently now no longer have to go into court. Have to go to a preliminary hearing or a grand jury to tell their story the first time. And that ultimately leads to a lot of cases being resolved with the victim never actually having to go to the courtroom.
Wow, fantastic.
But that's not always the case. And frequently, if the case is going to be disputed by the defendant, and there is no resolution of their case, then what's going to happen is you're going to have to go through this long process of being interviewed by prosecutors, by police, and then being interviewed on the stand come trial time, possibly grand jury, that's a possibility as well. And all of that, as you said before and as you're aware of, becomes very, very draining, because why am I doing this again? I said this already. Why do I have to say it again? I gave a statement to the police. I signed it. Why can't that be used?
And psychologically, the victim actually feels guilty after a while. Like, you know, it's like they don't believe me. So I have to keep repeating myself. And if I say it a little differently this time, it might count against me.
And that is the nature of the criminal process, and actually the court system in general is that the accused gets to confront the person who is accusing them. They have an attorney who's available, who is going to be representing them zealously, which is their job. They have to do that. So you're going to be tested every step of the way.
Right.
And the case is going to be tested every step of the way. And we try in the prosecutor's office to make sure that you've got enough support there and enough preparation so that you're going to be able to get through the process, not easily, but to get through it at the very least. And that's varies from case to case, because if it was a case that I was trying, and it was a mass murder, or it was a huge case,
it was so horrific,
then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have a lot more attention than if it's just another burglary case or just another car theft case. And that becomes more problematic. And the interesting thing is almost every victim, no matter what case it is, no matter how small it is, every one of them is afraid of the defendant. They believe that the defendant is going to be retaliation. Is going to come back and get you, and the police are not going to be able to protect you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They can't have patrol officers, basically attached to you being your bodyguard, because that's just not physically possible or financially possible. But the vast majority of times there is no retaliation, but it can happen. So and people's concerns, because they haven't been through the system before, they don't understand it, and they're worried about it. People have a reason to be afraid, and that becomes a real advantage to the criminal defendants and the criminals, because they know that people are intimidated by them.
So now that we have something like this, Legal Advice in Paradise, what would you say to help arm people, because we never know in this crazy world, if something happens to them, no matter the scale of the crime, what would you say as a suggestion? I mean, I know there's no easy way around it, but with knowledge, what kind of knowledge should they know to help carry them so they're not completely blind?
There are people out there who will help in a whole number of different ways. And one, it could be an attorney who you need assistance with if you're going through a restraining order type process. Two, you can call and ask for assistance from a number of different locations, and I wrote some of them down.
Yeah, we're going to post that everywhere.
You've got, first off, there's a number of, let me tell you some of the things that are out there
Sure.
to help people and how it does.
Definitely.
There's the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and they have basically shelters are a big part of what they do, but they also have psychoeducational training and assistance that can go both to the abuser and the abused.
Can I share a little story?
Sure.
So I went through my little thing with the whole domestic violence, and I won't reveal names, but I was really afraid to call the women's shelter. I actually physically called them, and we had an office at the time, and I thought, I'm just going to sleep in the office overnight. I've slept in my car overnight on the beach. I've slept in my car overnight on a side street. I've done all of those things because I know a lot of women, even though they know there's help, they're thinking, oh, it's a cot with all these strange people. You know, I just feel more safe in my car, or just go back home to the abuser. What would you say to them? Don't be afraid, call.
You can call, and you get to make your own decision. They can tell you what help is available. They can show you the circumstances, and you can accept it. You can reject it. It's not like
I rejected it.
So you can do that.
Right.
But the other thing is that there are other people who've gone through this like you have, and a lot of those people are now helping in these different organizations. So you've got people who, you're not alone in being somebody who's been abused.
That's the message, is that the people there have gone through it too.
And they've gone through it, and they've helped people, and so they're there to help you and assist you, and you get to call the shots. I mean, that's the key. You are the person who has gone through this situation, and now that does not become true once we start filing criminal cases. Once you file criminal cases, then you're required to show up once you're under subpoena. But you do have the ability to find people who can assist you at all sorts of different levels, including the police department. And
I think people are intimidated by the police department.
There is a large segment of the community that feels very strongly that way, and there are some police officers who aren't as sensitive as they should be, but there are a whole bunch of people in the police department who aren't as intimidating as they once were before, not because they can't protect us, because they can, but because they want to see that you've gone through this experience with the least amount of damage possible to your basically feelings of security and how you view the experience from start to finish, and whether you get a good result. Because if you're in a domestic violence situation and there are kids involved, because you have children, or they're living in the same house, then they're going through the same training for what they're seeing,
Right.
and it's something that they're going to imitate later on. So if there's
Exactly.
screaming and noise, if there's beating, they think that that's a proper
normal.
way to live, and so you have to break that and
Break the cycle.
and you can do that, but it's going to take other people helping you frequently.
Okay,
And
that's
there are
good to
people who
know.
do.
You hear that, listeners? Reach out for help. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's a couple of good places too.
Okay.
There's the Domestic Violence Action Center. There is a victim witness assistance in the prosecutor's office. So if you're actually going to court and you're going through the process, they can help you and explain why you're doing this at this particular point, what needs to be done, where you need to be when. They'll call you, their assistant. They're a phenomenal assistance
great,
to you.
great.
At least, and they're great for us. You can, if you're worried about a restraining order, there's a very important restraining order, a TRO hotline, which is at 538-5959, and you can call that. They're only going to be open during regular working hours, but the hotline will give you directions if it's not working hours, and will assist you in what you need to do in terms of getting in the process when you need it. So all of those things are available. And another unfortunate aspect is there is always a sort of a hand-in-hand sexual abuse going along with the physical abuse as well. And so the Sex Abuse Treatment Center at Kapolani Hospital has just done a magnificent job of helping people. And if you have been the victim of a sexual assault, even if it's not in a domestic violence situation.
I was a victim of sexual molestation as a child.
See,
And children don't want to speak out. They're afraid. And I taught my children children. My son's 33, my daughter's 12. I taught them early on what to do in case somebody approaches them. And I think parents should know about this number.
It's real. It's extremely important, and it's available quickly. And I have a tremendous respect for Adria Romelli and her troops over there. She's been doing this for years and years. And if it's a sexual assault, as long as it's not within the family, it doesn't have to be reported. There are some people who don't want the community to know that they're victims of sexual assault.
Right.
So that's not a requirement if it's outside of the family. If it's inside the family, it affects too many people to be able to be permitted. And it goes down to, this involves assault by not just spouses, significant others, but dating situations as well, which occur frequently. So
that's a silent one in itself.
It really is, and a lot of it is. And the good news is that a lot of the silence that was attending sex assault decades ago, it's changed. And
Thank
the same
goodness,
thing's actually happening now with domestic violence. Domestic violence is now out from behind, out of the closet, and people are now more
Thank
aware
goodness.
of the kind of things that they can do. But that's 535-7600, and if you have been the victim of any type of sexual assault, this is the place to call. And under certain circumstances, if you do not want to make it public, it won't be. Although we would encourage, from the law enforcement view,
blow that whistle.
Yeah, if you don't do it, then there's the risk that somebody else will suffer through the same
Exactly.
thing that happened to you.
Exactly.
So it's always important to say enough of this stuff.
Same goes with that Domestic Violence Action Center.
Absolutely
there.
correct. Domestic Violence Action Center gives you crisis, and that's actually got a legal helpline too.
Oh, fantastic.
So if you're worried about the legal aspects of it, you can call and speak to them.
Wow. That's really
And
helpful.
you're going to post all of these things.
Yes, I am.
On this podcast.
This podcast,
is that
because
what I'm doing? I'm doing a
we're
podcast
doing
for
an,
the first time in my
we're
life.
doing an audio podcast and we're doing a video podcast, so it's maximum outreach.
You mean that there aren't people who are going to get to see our, your
Well,
lovely face?
If
and
they
my
want to,
looks?
they can access it. And by the way, agents of change, of those who haven't joined our free membership, you just text your name and email to area code 808-670-3400, and you will get a report on how to choose an attorney. There's 5 common mistakes people do, and also each podcast will be automatically sent to your cell phone, so you don't miss an episode.
Let's talk about the mistakes.
Exactly. We're going to
With
set. That was a
attorneys.
beautiful. That was a beautiful segue, wasn't
let's go
it?
right in. You did very well. I'm very impressed. Okay, you go ahead and pat yourself on the back. I'm not touching you.
There, I did it myself.
Choosing an attorney is. I sort of sometimes analogize this to buying a car. Okay, because do you buy the first car that you see?
No, and
Never.
And when we visit you the first time to talk about being on the show, it's like picking a doctor. People just go to the first one, but you have to have multiple opinions, right?
You have to basically shop the market, okay, and find out. First off, you have somebody somewhere who's gone through something before, and you can ask them, who do I need to speak to? So, and there's got to be a lawyer out there who's going to be good for you, and you want somebody who's got specific knowledge, who has specific knowledge about the issue.
Right.
You want them to be somebody who is somebody you're comfortable with,
Exactly.
who's got a good reputation, and who is somebody who's going to be able to represent you to the best of their ability and to your satisfaction. It's to your satisfaction. You should have an attorney who I would say at a bare minimum, get 3 different names, and that's just at the bare minimum, and then speak to each one of them, and then see if they can't take your case, who do they recommend, and those, I think, if you do those things, I think that you've got a shot now getting somebody who is really in the best situation to help you, and that's what you need. But you do not, never under any circumstances, should you go and sit there and say, okay, this is the first guy, you're it.
I think most people do that, though, because
I think the vast
they
majority
have
do.
no idea. Like with my case, I actually went from one attorney to another, and sat down, said I had a good case, and so many things along the way. I had to find out about my own case by going to ho'oiki.org to find out about my case because I couldn't get answers. My case was supposed to have a jury just before we went into court. I went on Ho'oiki again because I couldn't get answers, and it said non-jury trial. I'm like, what? We just went through depositions. Co-counsel said the jury's going to love it because they're going to be sympathetic to you. They're going to see this other person's character and everything you've been doing. Even co-counsel didn't know we were going to have a jury. How was that?
That's not good news.
That's
okay?
not good. It
That's
wasn't.
not
I
good
lost.
news. So
I lost
that was-
everything.
So that's you should be intelligently and completely informed on exactly what needs to be done.
Yes. And
As we're hearing my phone go off in the distance.
We're totally grassroots and we don't care.
Okay,
so we're just gonna let it go.
We're just gonna let it go.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is our show.
Judy, if that's you, dear, I'm sorry. I'm not picking up the phone. Please don't punish me, please.
See, we're grassroots here. We're not
She
like
hung up now. She knows what's going on here. She's very mad.
We're not all fancy and stuff. We just want to get the message out there and what people can do, arm themselves, because knowledge is power.
It is. And the legal profession is, there's a whole variety of different issues and problems, and you deserve the best that you can get for what your circumstances are. So you should shop around, find out what the costs are, and do your very best to get somebody who you're comfortable with and who you are satisfied with is capable and honest.
Now, when we sat down, I wanted you to bring up, and this is something I didn't know about, but we're going to go off a little bit here about time out when there's domestic violence, abuse of a household member, because I myself went through that, and at that time there was no timeout. I think that's an excellent idea for those who are out there. The statistics are so high, and people are silent about it in their marriages. But if something like this happens and the police come to your home, I've experienced it. What is the standards now?
Well, if you come to if the police go to the home and there's evidence of physical abuse of one of the people, and they have to make a decision. The police have to make a decision. Hopefully, it's not the one where they do both. They try and make an informed decision on who was the aggressor and who is the person who was being assaulted, because sometimes it happens both ways. Each people are hitting people, and one person is trying to defend themselves. If there is evidence of physical abuse and there is a reasonable probability that there will be further physical abuse or harm, then the police shall require a 48-hour period of separation.
Wow. I like that.
It's
hard, though.
It's hard. It's rough. If the person has goods that they need to get back from, they need to get personal effects, they can go, but only when accompanied by police officers.
That's excellent.
So the police officers will come in. They will do that. They're not allowed to call the person. They're not allowed to try and get themselves back with the usual level of apology. They're not allowed to have any contact with the person who was determined to be the victim. And so it's an excellent step in the right direction to get them separated.
It has to be diffused.
Not only does it have to be diffused, but it's a first step of the victim asserting their resistance to this. And everybody is aware of the fact that domestic violence is a power and control issue.
It is.
They want power over the person they're abusing.
Yes.
They want to control
There's
them
a
as
cycle of abuse.
Completely.
I went to many therapists in my life, and I learned the cycle of abuse, the honeymoon stage, where it's all apologetic. I'm so sorry, da-da-da. And then my therapist showed me this 12 o'clock. Here's the honeymoon. 3 o'clock, it's not so honeymoon anymore. 6 o'clock, we're going back to, what did you do? Why did you do this? Da-da-da. Start poking blame. We get to quarter till, and the violence starts happening again. Then any little excuse will explode And then after the explosion, this is when, the harm comes and everything. And then, maybe intervention, like the cops did come. Of course, then you go back to the honeymoon stage. I'm so sorry.
Tears.
And tears,
yeah.
and you love this person. It can go both ways, man or women. But it can go both ways. There's a honeymoon stage. I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. And because you love this person, you go back and you hope. You hope that the honeymoon stage is beautiful. Maybe he'll buy you gifts, or she, could go either way. Take you out to dinner, or just sweet. And then there's the rumblings. Then there's the eggshells. And it's like the vibes start going back and forth. And then it just goes all over again. All over again. I know I'm talking to a lot of people. I've been through it. And you need to recognize you need to recognize it, step back, and you actually have to take responsibility for it and say, well, how we're going to change this.
And it's particularly aggravated in all circumstances when there's children involved.
Exactly.
And it's then this is a cycle that they're now becoming a part of.
Right.
So you're
It's a
absolutely
learned
correct.
thing. It's
and
a
thank you
learned
for
thing.
telling people, because you're right. There's plenty of people out there who've
They're
gone through exactly
they're
what
suffering
you've
in
gone through.
silence. In the home, there's lots of walking on eggshells. Like, okay, when is this going to snap again? Sometimes, it'd be a beautiful morning. By afternoon or night, it's explosive.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know what will turn that person into a fiend, and then just the sweetest teddy bear in this entire world.
It has to stop, and people do have the power
Yes,
to
they
stop
do.
it.
They
and,
do.
And that's what has to happen. And and there are times where there's couples therapy, and people can change. In some instances, it's not very likely, but it can on occasion, particularly when you're talking about somebody who's going through the usual levels of drug and alcohol abuse. That complicates everything over and over again.
Right.
Or people who are returning from deployments overseas where they're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and they've seen things that they never want to. They've lived in this survival mode for this longest period of time.
Right.
And we expect them to participate in extreme violence, since people are defending us and trying to stop some of the terrorist attacks and other things like that.
Right.
So it's a real difficult situation in the military as well.
Yes, I went to one of those welcome backs, and the pastor would talk to the families and say, your men have been away, and they're not the same. So we need to be sensitive to that. If you need help, seek help.
And the military is doing a phenomenal job now of trying to reintegrate people into the community in a positive way. But we have far too many veterans, who are suffering from basically from having protected us and what they've
sacrificing
seen,
themselves
and
their families.
That's much better put than I put it. And, but all of this, basically, the point to get at over and over again is that there can be help. You're not alone. There are groups that will help you. You need to educate yourself on that, and if it requires you to get legal counsel, then make sure you make a sensible effort at getting somebody who's good for you.
Yeah, so for, through all this tumultuous emotions and all that, somehow you just got to get yourself together and think about who you can reach out to and make some really effort, steps in a different direction. If not, it'll keep being a cycle, And you can't change the other person. You only can change yourself.
That's painfully true.
Yes.
on occasion, but you can not only can you change yourself, but you can change your family's circumstances as well.
Exactly.
Which is, once again, the cycle that comes over and over again.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Peter.
It's been a pleasure.
It's such a serious topic. It touches all of us. It really does. And I'm glad we can have a little bit of humor in between, because humor, laughter.
I'm dead serious. I know this humor thing. I don't believe in that at all. So, and I think that's actually that's a good point to finish up on, and that is
And you said that when I said, this is, you should have fun, or else what now?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, if life is miserable for you and you have a negative outlet, you're going to be entirely self-consumed. And on the other hand, a good friend of mine, and I think I told you his last name was Lama, something.
The picture right there.
His first name was Dolly or something.
Yeah,
like
something like
and
that.
And he said, choose to be optimistic. You will feel better. And I've always felt that, despite what I've seen in the court,
you've seen
being the criminal
so much.
stuff. I choose to be optimistic because I think in the long run, people do have good in them. And there are some people who are just complete disasters who need to be segregated out. They no longer have that card that says they're a member of the regular human race. They're just problems from one end to the other. And those you institutionalize in whatever is the appropriate facility.
Right.
But frankly, if you have a positive attitude and that exudes throughout what you do, you're going to be happier in what you do, and the people around you are going to be happier in what you do. One of the great things that I enjoy about my family is that we all laugh at and with each other. And both of our children have very, very well-developed senses of humor, and most of it is directed in a very uncomplimentary fashion at me. So, which I can handle it, but it leads to a lot of fun. I mean, so it's something that you're pleased to see. So, yes, choose to be optimistic and follow the teachings of my friend the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, I mean, if Peter Carlisle, a man who's seen some of the incredible, most atrocities around on this beautiful island, I tell you what, listen to what he says. Your attitude has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and me being stuck here for 45 minutes, having to listen to this person all the time, I mean, it's just awful. I mean, it's just the most difficult thing to have to go through, And she still looks like Donna Kim.
Oh no, yeah, he just. My nickname is Kim now. But anyway, thank you again, Peter.
My pleasure.
I mean, this was so fantastic. This is priceless.
Whew.
Perry and Price.
Yeah, let's get those guys in on this deal too.
Okay, so we're signing off. Agents of Change, have a fantastic day. And we'll just shaka out of here. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Advice in Paradise podcast. For more information, visit www.legaladviceinparadise.com.